The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. Tonight, this is Dave Hondel. I got my friend Myko Anthony from down in Atlanta, Georgia. Both of our hometown is Minneapolis, and I'm going to bring him in right now. Myko, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, Dave? How's it going?
Going really well, man. Going really well. Just trying to, like everybody, get through this coronavirus, seeing some more spikes up here in the Northeast. And I don't know how you guys are doing down in Atlanta, but almost like here we go again.
Yeah, we've been seeing it's been really spiking up in the north. Yeah, it's crazy, man. And, just one day at a time, one day at a time. It's shaking the world, It's just a crazy time for us right now.
I know, right? Yeah. So, even with all that stuff going on, we still have, our art, we have our craft, and, I know that you, besides being a singer and a rapper and an actor, now you throw in modeling in the mix. Talk about that, man. How did that come about?
Well, I'm in an agency called TLA, the Lingill Agency here in Atlanta. Founded by Tina Bridges, and it's an acting and modeling agency. So she kind of nudged me a little bit to try out the modeling portion of it, and I gave it a try. Here I am.
Yeah. Okay, Tina. I talked to Tina. I know Tina. Yeah, we had her on the show. Okay. All right. That's cool. So how's that going?
Going pretty good. And also. From stepping out and doing that, I got signed on for a model with a company called Hudson Newkirk. It's a lingerie company.
I'm glad you're getting into modeling too, because just as far as kind of a natural progression, I think to for an actor to be a model and a model to be an actor. Because realistically, when you're modeling clothes, you're essentially acting. If you're walking either the runway or you're doing, print ads, or commercials, you're essentially acting at that point. So, that's got to be kind of a natural progression, right?
Well, true in a sense, as far as it being just natural to, as far as skill level, that's a little different. I went into it thinking like, well, I can just go ahead. Well, it ain't nothing but just walking. But when you're doing it, it's not what people think. There's certain ways you gotta walk. There's certain turns you gotta do. There's a charisma all about it as well. It's a whole. Like I said, it's a sense of acting. You need to walk in a way that's engaging to the audience. You make them want to see you, so they can see what you're wearing. So
what kind of, down in Atlanta? What kind of I guess venues. Do you model? Is it retail mostly, or do you do like special events?
Yep, runway.
So runway. So now when you do shows like that, do you? Your first time being up there. When you first had to walk the runway. How was that? Was it nerve-wracking?
Well, Dave, I was very, very nervous the very first time. One thing that kept going through my mind, I had to remember my turns at the right time, which way to swivel this time, which way to swivel that time. And all I kept thinking is, do not trip over nothing.
Yeah, you got to get that one under your belt, man. That first one, you got to get under there, because I'm telling you, I've seen it. You and I, man, we worked in the business for a while in the fashion industry, and you work those fashion shows, man. You see people fall, and these are professional, models that have been doing this for a long, long time. So, the fact that, you get out there your first time, the first thing you think of, don't fall.
Right.
Well, I've seen your pictures, man. You long before you were a model. You were, you were looking good in all your photos. So, you already had, the print part down pretty good. So let's talk about some of your acting, man. Talk about some of your acting stuff. Because you were talking to me before the show started, and you got a show or a play coming up in late October. So talk about that. What's that one about?
Yes. We have a play coming up, TLB Productions. We have the hit stage play, What Do You Want to Eat? Is premiering October 31st. You can go on Eventbrite and purchase the tickets right there. It's What Do You Want to Eat? And it's a play. Sometimes we have trouble deciding. So that's all I'm going to give you.
Oh, so I was waiting for more, but that's it. So it's a little teaser for us.
Just a little teaser.
So where is that going to be, Mike?
It's going to be right here in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Uptown Comedy Theater.
Okay, so is this a comedy, or is that a teaser too?
It's a little bit of both. There's some seriousness in there. There's some humor in there. There's some lessons to be learned in there as well. Okay,
good. I like that. Yeah. Well, when it gets closer too, we'll put the ad on our Instagram and Facebook page. So definitely let us know. Once we get the promos out.
Okay. Awesome.
So let's go on to some of your music, because I know, obviously, when you and I first met, you were really into music and rapping, and I know that you have a lot of music out there. iHeartRadio, Apple, everything out there, all the streaming services. So talk about some of your music that's coming up, or some of the new things that our listeners can hear.
I just released a EP called Brick Rose under my musical stage name, The Ranger. And that's D as in David, A as in Apple, REIGNJAH, Ranger. So yeah, I released that a few weeks ago. Just to put a little something out there. I have more coming out soon, but this is just a little teaser to throw something out there just to give people a glimpse of some of the music I've done. I also have a bonus song on there called No Time to Wait. It's a song that I came up with trying to do a commercial for the barbershop that I work at, and coming up with just a little idea turned into a little song. So just a little bonus.
What other singles on the EP can we hear?
I have a few other songs on there. Just to give you a few titles. I have Sick of Losing, He's So Good, We Soldiers, Welcome to Life, and the bonus track, No Time to Wait.
Oh, we know about Welcome to Life. I worked with you on that video a few years back, and we are getting close to completion on that. So it's perfect timing for the EP to come out with that music video about to support it. So that's great. We can't wait to hear that EP. And so everybody out there, make sure you go on and check out that EP, which we will put on our site as well. But going further than that, Mike, we've known each other for a lot of years, and I know that you've moved down to the Atlanta area, and we talk a lot about Atlanta on our shows with when I talk to Tina and some of the other people that are down in Atlanta. It's just kind of a hotbed for entertainment, no matter what the genre, either there's music or TV, acting, now modeling for you as well. But, talk about the Atlanta area and really how it's blown up over the, recent years in entertainment, and, a lot of people that are looking for somewhere to go to get in the business. It's like it's not so much New York and LA anymore. It's really Atlanta, right?
Yes. When I first heard about what was bubbling down here in Atlanta, I knew it was a place that I wanted to be. And at the time, it was just a rumor that a lot of the Hollywood industry production companies were coming to Atlanta to start filming here. And so I wanted to get here to make sure I was getting above the race. And at the time, it was just a rumor. I didn't fully understand what it was until I got here, and now it is booming. They shoot more films here than all over the world, different like movies and TV shows. And then just on the local scene, there's poetry, there's jazz, there's different vibe clubs where they do, like slam poetry, and they may rap and sing and open mic, things like that. And the comedy circuit is really buzzing here as well. So the entertainment scene down here is really, really coming alive. And it took a little dive during this COVID time, but it's starting to kind of revive a little bit right now.
What do you think that is, as far as Atlanta being such a hotbed? I know Tyler Perry has a massive studio down there. Do you think that had a little bit to do with it, or do you think that Atlanta just in itself just kind of attracted, I guess, artists from all over the world?
Some of it, Dave, in my opinion, is some of it is the entertainment aspect of it, but I think a lot of it that don't really get a lot of credit for is the historical richness that's here in Atlanta, as far as the civil rights movement and all the different civil rights leaders that came out of Georgia. The rich history that it has, and just for other people, especially African Americans, people of color, just to know that these great things happen here. It seems like a place that, in their mind, it's a place that's better than where they are. So they go there with those hopes and expectations, and sometimes your hopes and expectations for a different life can change the way you respond to life, and it'll cause you to act differently. Switch up your behavior. Sometimes for men, it's called becoming a man. Just people evolving, and so we come in with that hope and with those aspirations. And sometimes when you're really seeking for something, you find those things. You call those things to you. It's the law of attraction. And when you have all these people drawn down here to come to soak up the richness of the culture down here, and then you have the richness of the entertainment, you have all of that. It's a place I can be free and express myself in arts and all of that has to offer. And you have what's now manifesting this energy of entertainment here, and now it's just attracting everybody. Now it's got to the point where it's just multicultural, and everybody's coming here.
Some respect. I mean, I completely agree with everything you said, because I think Atlanta is definitely, culturally speaking, is one of the most rich cities in not only just the country but the world. But in some respects, New York was like that at one point, and then it drew so many people there that, in a way, it's like, okay, that's enough. I got to get my space too. You got to have your space a little bit too. But I mean, it's a growing city still in Atlanta, but at what point is it going to be to the point where it's oversaturated, and your art and your music is going to be drowned out by so many other people? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's a wonder. I wish I knew that answer, but yeah. But as far as New York is a whole new different type of energy.
Yeah, it's funny because when I moved to New York, I thought, just doing music videos, I thought, man, this was the place to be. It was going to be like, nonstop work. And I'll be honest. I mean, when I first moved to New York City, I was with the Songwriters Guild of America, which was great. I had a lot of good contacts, but at the same time, as far as, the videos go, I mean, I did more work in Minneapolis and Orlando than I've done in New York in 9 years, So I think it's tough because sometimes, a city like New York, although it's rich in, arts and, music and everything else, I mean, sometimes the saturation of the market gets to the point where everybody's got a video guy, everybody's got a director, everybody's got an editor, everybody's got this, everybody's got that, so everybody's already working with somebody, and it's not something that, and everybody's loyal to, to their video guy for the most part, or video or whatever. I mean, or sound engineer or whatever you're doing for art. I mean, so it's tough when you're, maybe in the Minneapolis market, a lot of people, think that it's, and it is a small market because, even though, Prince and the time, and everybody, that all the people that came out of Minneapolis at that, the 80s, 90s, but at the same time, it's still a fairly small market, as you know. I mean, you know yourself, a lot of people that are, that have been big in the music industry. You either went to school with them or you performed with them or whatever. So it's a very small community in the music community in Minneapolis. So, you go to New York, I mean, it's massive, it's a massive community. So you might know pockets of people, but in Minneapolis, everybody. So that's why I was to tell people, that if they're in a small market, it's okay to stay in that small market. Sometimes you can put your footprint in that small market and get more exposure than if you were to move to New York or LA or even Atlanta to get in the industry. Sometimes, you're like a salmon swimming upstream with a million other salmon and, trying to get to the end. So it's kind of, it's one of those things where it can be good and bad at the same time.
Yeah. Good as in you can get lost in the ocean. I mean, bad as in you can get lost in the ocean, but good as in order to be seen, you got to be a lot different than the rest. You have to do something to make you fully stand out.
Right, exactly. We talk about that on my show almost every episode. So talk about that. Talk about how, you've been in this a long time, Myko, and like I said, you know a lot of people in fact, we were just talking before the show again about the group Next and RL, and you went to school with them, and and so there's obviously what sets them apart, to get that multi-platinum record, and so what sets people apart, what does it take, I guess, to get to that level for an artist, because like I said, with the streaming platforms right now, everybody has the same ability to do everything that everybody else does. So what's going to make that person listen to you more than the next person that's also on the streaming platform? I mean, talk about that. What helps set people apart? Because it's not just the music, right?
I think a lot of times when you're dealing with situations such as different talents and different shows, like what you're saying, and like in the market right now, a lot of people are doing some of the same things, and a lot of times people are looking at what other people are doing and trying to mimic those things and trying to reach a pinnacle. But when we realize that we're already unique individuals from the day we were born, and you learn to trust and believe in who you are and be true to yourself, then I think that is what causes you to stand apart. And then along with that, you have to have the confidence and the tenacity and the durability, if that's a word. I can go ahead and say that one. Have the durability to stay the course and want it like you want air. And that consistency will gain momentum and cause people to see you. And then you can, and that's how everyone that's stood out, that's what they've done. They just stayed the course.
That's a good point, and that's something that I've thought about that with even the podcast that I've been doing this for 2.5 years maybe, and kind of started out as really a hobby and just getting back behind the microphone again. But my daughter, who's like one of my biggest cheerleaders, my wife and my daughter, I mean, they really pushed me to do this, and my daughter, when I get frustrated and get kind of down on doing this, and and there'll be a lull in getting followers, or there'll be a lull in getting listeners, and then I'll get a jump, then I'll get a lull. And sometimes those lulls, you just want to quit. You want to just kind of walk away. But like my daughter said, Dad, she goes, sometimes it takes, years to get what you want. You just have to keep doing it and don't quit, and so she's been very motivating to me to keep going. And I think that way in music too. If you look at some of the people who, or maybe later in life, and maybe they got their break on either American Idol or X Factor, or, well, not anymore, but, the America's Got Talent, they'll go on shows like that, but sometimes they're in their 40s and 50s before they even, get noticed, but they never quit, so it's something that I think goes a long way, and just to keep going and keep the course. And that's why, I tell people too, these young artists that come on my show, sometimes they feel like their music's going to get them through. And it really doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. You might be one genre, but if you to collaborate with somebody else in another genre, now you're gaining another whole other audience, by crossing over and doing a song with like a country artist, or doing a song with a top 40 pop artist or something. Maybe you're a rapper, but to go outside of your element and your comfort zone, you're gaining a whole new audience that might say, who's this? I never heard of this guy, but he's awesome. So I think there's a lot to be said about reinventing yourself and doing do something that's outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, and it's just utilizing the fullness of your talent. Sometimes we're talented with more than just one thing. We have the ability to possess a talent in more than one thing. So if a talent don't get used, it's important that we know what our talents are and build on those things, and if it's 5 different talents, build on 5 of those things, because you never know which one is going to open the door for all the other ones to shine.
Have you ever thought of people out there that are maybe as talented as Beyonce, or as talented as like Jay-Z, or anybody out there that's like the peak of their career? You ever thought about that maybe that person that's sitting on the couch watching Netflix right now probably has that talent, but they never did anything with it, or they got frustrated and quit? You ever think about something like that? Like the people that could be big and just never got to that level because they didn't they were either motivated, or they weren't confident, or whatever the case is, they just never went for it.
Right, they allow fear, or they allow fear to come and take place. Yeah, I think about that.
Right,
I've thought about that plenty of times before. In fact, there's a guy, a preacher by the name of Dr. Miles Monroe, who he asked the congregation one time, do you guys know where the richest place on earth is? And everybody's kind of thinking like, they're trying to think of different countries. And he said the grave is the richest place on earth, because it's full of different ideas that never manifested.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think about that stuff. That's a deep thought, man. But I think about stuff like that a lot, where I'm thinking to myself, what, if I give this up right now, it's like, who knows what could have been, or what could happen if I just gave up and quit. To keep going like that, I mean, you just never know, and so that's what keeps me going. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people in the arts going, is that it's like, you don't want to actually regret something that you didn't, because I don't want to be old and think, what, I could have, would have, should have, and I didn't. Now it's too late. I don't want to have that. I don't want to have ever that conversation with myself.
Everyone has a certain destiny in life, and our destiny is filled with many bridges that we have to build. And when I say that, I mean we're here to help someone. And that's helping someone is their bridge to get into the other side of whatever's holding them back, so they can reach their destiny. And,
right.
Right. So, if we keep that in mind, we can get rid of a whole lot of issues and stuff like that. We can come together more as a community. And we can celebrate life. We can celebrate art. We can celebrate each other even more, And that's one of the reasons that I love doing music, because it causes us to come together. We just need to come together more.
Have you ever thought about it, Mike, where, both of us being from Minneapolis, you ever just sat and thought how lucky we are that we're, in the arts of, but mostly music. I mean, that the fact that we came from Minneapolis and we grew up in the time where, Minneapolis was the place, man. Minneapolis sound was hot, and all these groups are coming out of there, and, and obviously Prince and a lot of people that worked with Prince. I mean, I always find myself lucky that we grew up in Minneapolis, and the fact that even though we don't live there now, the fact that we grew up in such a music rich city, and the type of music was just amazing, and just, it was felt worldwide. And even to this day, even though Prince is no longer with us, I mean, his effects are still being felt. And I feel lucky that we're, in that environment. And I think it kind of led to a lot of, creativity in the music.
Yes. I say we grew up in a beautiful city at the right time, which gave us all a different edge as far as when it comes to an ear to music, because of who the ones that were out at the time. And crazy when you say how strong of a city it is musically, because no matter where I go in the world, when I'm on cruises, I go to the Bahamas, I go to Mexico, I go to the Virgin Islands, different places here in the States, and even in different restaurants here in Atlanta, I'm always reminded of home, because there's always some type of music on the air, or somebody playing something. There's a picture up or something of hometown talent, and it's crazy. I've seen it more. I've experienced and seen more of the representation of Minneapolis music outside of Minneapolis than I have when I was back home. And I think a lot of that is when we're at home, we just don't pay attention to most of what everyone else pays attention to when they come from out of town. Because we see it so much, it's like blind to us. But coming out of town, I see it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Minneapolis has made such a big impact on the world music.
Yeah, I did a music video at Winterland Recording Studios in New Hope, Minnesota, and it's run by in partnership with Matt Fink and Bobby Z from the Revolution. That's the recording studio with a third partner that they have. But walking in there and just looking at all the platinum records on the wall from Purple Rain, and it was amazing to me, just the fact that I was in that studio, and just the guys that were in the Revolution. Like I said, just it was amazing just to be standing there and working in there. So those are types of things that I'll never forget. Just being in Minneapolis and just having conversations. Like I had a conversation a couple times with Michael Bland, Prince's drummer from Diamonds and Pearls days, and like I said, with Matt Fink, Bobby Z, and just some of the the old and New Power Generation. I was fortunate enough to do a video of the horn players and from New Power Generation, and had a nice conversation with them, and they were just like a husband and wife and a couple friends, and they were just the nicest people in the world. And the fact that they were touring the world with Prince, again from Minneapolis, and they still lived in Minneapolis. So those days are, I mean, to me, there's nothing better than to grow up in a city like Minneapolis during that time frame. And like you said, Mike, I mean, still hear music to this day on the radio. And I live in the Philadelphia area, and there's always music from I was listening to The Time the other day, and even the Jets. I went to school with the Jets. They're from there, and they were playing some of their old music from the late '80s, and so it was just an amazing time to grow up in Minnesota.
The '80s it was the time when it was booming down there, Dave. And it's funny you said the Jets, because I remember. I don't know if you remember, Dave, Uptown. There was it was Annie's Parlor. Used to be where Asian fusion restaurant.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Chino Latino. That's it. Chino Latino.
Oh, okay.
But remember, before it was Chino Latino, it used to be Annie's Parlor, and we would go in there and get shakes and burgers and onion rings. And I remember being in there one time, and the Jets came in, and it was the first time I had seen someone that was famous on TV that I've never seen before. That I didn't know beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, there's some famous people who I already knew them, and then they made it famous. It wasn't the same, but I remember seeing their videos and then seeing them in person. And at the time, I didn't even know that they were living in Minnesota.
Well, I was in class. I mean, I had classes with, I was good friends actually with Rudy Wolfgram, the drummer, and we went to school together. And his younger sisters were the lead singers, and they went to a different school. And then Eddie his older brothers went to Cooper High School. And we used to actually go to Meadow Lake Meadow Lake Elementary School, which was a New Hope, and there was this basketball court there, but the rims were like 8 feet tall, right? They were shorter because it was an elementary school, so they were shorter. So me and the guys from the Jets used to go down there almost every weekend. We'd be playing basketball and we had dunking contests, and me and Eddie, who was the percussionist, we'd have these dunking contests. But it was just I vividly see that in my head right now, just the fact that his infectious laugh that he had, and just the fact that he was bending the rim, and every time we do a dunk, everybody would scream and holler, and it was a lot of fun, man. We had a lot of good times, and when I was going to school there with them, they were Quasar at the time. They were noticed as a Polynesian group, at a Holiday Inn, and they were noticed by Don Powell, who's managing Stevie Wonder, I believe. He had managed Stevie Wonder, and he discovered them at the Holiday Inn, and so they turned into Quasar. He made them into a band called Quasar, and they all had to wear these like tinfoil suits. They all wore the same thing, and it was like a tinfoil suits. And then then I got to be in high school as a sophomore at Cooper. Then they turned into the Jets, where they took the name from the West Side Story, the gang called the Jets, and so that's how they got their name. The family has gone on to perform with their kids, and now they're the Jets again, and they're touring, which is great. I hope that they get back together again, because there's a couple. There's family members that part of the group that don't agree on the way that they did things, so they split apart and aren't talking right now, which is a shame. But so hopefully that gets better down the road quickly, and the family can heal. But again, those were great memories, and growing up, and I think that was partly my motivation to get into the music industry was seeing their success and just going to their shows and their concerts, and getting to know their mom and dad, and just it was a really exciting time, and I think that's what kind of got me motivated for it. Yeah,
a lot of people don't know the history with the music as far as the Battle of the Bands. I remember I would hear my dad and my uncles talk about it all the time. But these had the Battle of the Bands, and that's where a lot of people first heard The Time and Prince, before they became The Time and Prince, they were all in groups together.
Yeah, wasn't it Grand Central, Mike? Wasn't it Grand Central? Wasn't that Prince's first group? I could be wrong.
I think it was Grand Central. Yeah, I can't remember. I know Grand Central was the name of one of them. I believe another group with all them guys together was called Flight Time. But I know when that dispersed, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they took that name and made it the name of their studio or their production company.
Right.
I think.
Flight Time, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think people realize some of the top albums of all time were recorded right in Minneapolis at Flight Time.
Yeah. Yep, they sure was. Right there in Minneapolis. And some of that's my background as far as being in around the music. Scene, growing up with family, with my mom and dad in the music scene in Minneapolis and all of that.
Do you remember the Capri Theater, Mike? Do you remember the Capri Theater?
Oh, yeah. I performed there a bunch of times.
You did?
Yeah, I performed there a couple of times with doing different venues. I was at a church one time. We had a play in there. I did some music and I rapped one time in there. I rapped a few times in there, actually.
Well, that's where Prince got hit. Prince, that was his first performance. Was at the Capri Theater. Wow, I didn't know you played there. That's iconic. That place.
Yeah, I played at the Capri Theater.
Wow, that's so cool.
Or I played at the. That's when I was with the group Eastside. I used to be in a gospel music group called Eastside, and we actually have music on all music platforms right now. Our album Against All Odds that we did. That's on all the music platforms right now. But we performed there. We also performed at First Ave.
Really, you performed at First Avenue as well?
Yep, First Avenue, and we performed at Fine Line.
Wow. See, all those stages that you just mentioned right now, Prince used to play at. I mean, those are really legendary stages for our listeners out there. I mean, those are legendary stages in Minneapolis. I mean, First Avenue, obviously, from Purple Rain. And a lot of people don't realize that First Avenue doesn't have a backstage. And people in the movie, they created the backstage, or they did it somewhere else to make it look like he was going down some corridor and going backstage. There is no backstage. The backstage is the tour bus that sits right outside the door.
Right outside the door, right. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was with the group Eastside, they were doing a Sounds Good to Me. I can't remember the name of the title of the exhibit at the Minnesota Historic Museum, but I think it's called Sounds Good to Me Music. They was doing music, all the music that came from Minnesota. And, you know, Bob Dylan was mentioned, and all these different Prince and all the different music groups that we're actually talking about right now. But they also got a hold to a group that I was in, and they had us come and they played some of our music for the exhibit, and they actually had us come and perform the first day that it opened. Yep,
that's cool.
So when you look at the Minnesota Minnesota Historic Society, when they had that exhibit talking about the history of music, the group were mentioned in the history of music in Minnesota.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Like I said, I love reminiscing about this, and I don't know if I ever told you this, Michael, but when Prince died, the day he died, I was actually on business. I was in Minneapolis for business. I was just down the street from First Avenue, not even a block and a half, and got notice on my news feed on my phone that Prince had just passed away, and I'm like, no way. So I mean, literally, the first thing I did is I left where I was, and I literally walked a block and a half, and I was probably the second person at First Avenue, before all the flowers even started, getting laid down there. I was one of the first people to get to First Avenue after it was announced that he died, and the news started showing up, and they interviewed me on the news, and there was just people started congregating, and then that night there was there was like a big street party. They kind of an impromptu street party about, that played Prince music. And it was just it's just an iconic place for anybody that ever visits, Minneapolis. You got to go to First Avenue and see where Purple Rain was filmed, because, Prince and the time and a lot of like Myko, you played there, and like all kinds of people. If you look at all the stars on the outside, I mean, it shows you all the people who played at First Avenue, and it's just like a who's who, and it's crazy because when you walk inside, it's really not that big of a place. It used to be the Greyhound bus depot. It used to be the Greyhound bus depot, as a matter of fact, and they bricked around the outside of it. They left the checkerboard floor in there and put a stage in there, and I mean, that was like an iconic place for music for many, many years. In fact, I think they used to call it Uncle Sam's years and years ago. When it first became a club. So my mom used to go there. My mom and my stepdad used to go to shows there a lot. And in fact, here's another piece of trivia. Before it was the Greyhound bus depot, that space was the Jefferson School for Girls in Minneapolis back in the 1800s. So that building has been around for a long, long time. Yeah, so it's crazy. And then where Butler Square is, I don't know if you know where Butler Square is, that's a building that's near First Avenue. Butler Square is a space where it was Minneapolis's first ever baseball stadium. And that's where the Minneapolis Millers first played. Then they went to right? Crazy. A lot of history in Minneapolis. So for those listeners that go through Minneapolis, if you go to the Mall of America, you gotta take a side trip and go to downtown Minneapolis and check out some of those sites. Well, man, Michael, it's been a pleasure, man, talking to you, and I always like having you on my show. You're welcome anytime, of course, and can't wait to hear about your show coming up on the 31st. Tell everybody again what that is.
It's called What Do You Want to Eat? It's coming up October 31st. You can go on Eventbrite, and you can purchase those tickets. Hurry, hurry, hurry before they sell all the way out. And Dave, you know what, Dave? Guess what question most people don't know that you didn't ask me?
Uh-oh. What's that?
What got me into acting?
Oh, okay. I know we've covered it, but let's we have new listeners now that we're on iHeartRadio. So yeah, how did you get into acting? How'd you get into acting, Michael?
Well, I used to work at this clothing department store, and I did music only at the time. And I let one of the guys in the asset protection listen to my tape, and another employee overheard it and asked me if I wanted to do a music video. And as excited as I was, I said yes. And time went on. I wanted to get the music right, and we was, trying to work on it. And then the individual came and asked me if I wanted to be in the movie. And I said yes. And from then on, I got the buzz. And that individual that introduced me to this awesome career and this awesome entertainment in my life, because it's fun, is you, Dave Hondel.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you should mention that, because I was just watching some old videos on YouTube, and watched an old music video of Adam Troy that we did, who did the music for the movie Unspoken, for which you were in, and and the music video was I liked it. I mean, so Adam Troy did the music, but we showed a lot of clips from that, and one of the clips was you beating up this homeless guy. So yeah, I mean, that brought back a lot of memories. But look, yeah, it was good too, because the fact that first of all, that was your first thing in a short film, which was good, your first acting gig. But the fact that you were so convincing, and so was Josh, who's your partner in the movie. But when you smashed that violin, man, it was very convincing. And then when you walked away, I love that. That's probably one of my favorite shots of anything I've ever done, was the fact when you were walking away in slow motion after you just ruined this guy's life. So I was like, that was a great scene. So yeah, we'll definitely I'll have to throw that clip up too, on my site, so people can see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I that's one of my reels that I use. Yeah. People say, oh my God, you were really mean to that guy.
Hey Mike, did you know that building, the building we used for that movie, do you know the historical significance of that building? Okay, right now it's next to Target Field, but that building was the first murder of Andrew Cunanan when he eventually killed Versace. The first murder, he killed somebody in that building. That was the first murder inside that building.
That's right.
You remember that? Yeah, the first of 4 murders happened in that building. Yeah, and that was our production office was in there as well. That's where we did the auditions. That's where we did, that's where I did a lot. I spent a lot of time in that building, actually. So that was when that thing happened. It was like, I can't believe it happened in that building. You did awesome, and actually, everybody we auditioned. We worked with some pretty good actors, and it was really a pleasure and really an honor for me to have everybody be in this film, the short film. And I think you were there for the showing of it, and I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, but I think it was Independent Midwest. IFC Midwest, I believe it was. Yeah. So they had a showing of it, and you said it was standing room only.
Yeah, standing room only. Standing room only.
Yeah, good for everybody to be seen, and I think it kind of helped everybody along. So like I said, that was the good old days. That was a long time ago, but you always look back at where you kind of started. And for me, that was one of my first films as well. And the fact that it got had a nice showing and got noticed a little bit was nice, and kind of helped everybody get motivated to do more in the business. So it was good.
Right.
Well, man, look, I got a minute left here. I just wanted to again thank you for everything, for being on my show, Mike, and just the friendship over the years and everything. I'm glad we continue to stay in contact. And like I said, I think the sky's the limit, man, for you and everything that you're doing. And like I said, you're in a good spot down there in Atlanta. So, best of luck to you, and also your family too, your beautiful family. And, just take care, be safe. And, I can't wait to talk to you again, man. Thank you.
Yes, same to you and your family too, Dave. Peace and blessings. Can't wait to talk to you again.